What if we tell you that Russia and Brics have decided to hit the dollar where it hurts the most? What if we tell you that Russian President Vladimir Putin and other BRICS leaders are carrying out a secret mission to gradually get the dollar ditched by all that matters? Well, for that, BRICS has to ensure that the powerhouse of the dollar no longer remains. But what is this powerhouse? What's the force that encourages everyone in the world to use only the dollar and no other currency? Well, that's the petrodollar economy, where all oil trade has to be made in dollars. That's the deal Saudi Arabia made, being the leader of the Middle East as the second biggest oil producer in the world. But guess what? BRICS has reached the Middle East and is asking it to ditch the dollar. What happens if the dollar is ditched by the Middle East for oil trade and all other forms of trade? Let's know about that in this video. Russian President Vladimir Putin once said that if the oil-producing countries in the Middle East give up using the US dollar, it will be the end for the dollar. And now he is taking practical steps to end the dollar forever. Russia, a leading member of BRICS, is urging Middle Eastern countries to stop using the US dollar for oil payments. President Vladimir Putin has strongly criticized the United States for imposing economic sanctions on Russia following its invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Since the sanctions were implemented, Russia has faced significant economic difficulties as direct trade inflows have slowed. And this can happen with any country which goes against the West in any way. If a country declines to buy any Western agenda, the West will put sanctions, and these sanctions are effective due to the dollar. All assets are frozen and no trade can be done. Therefore, instead of waiting for the US to create hurdles for every country, Russia has decided to make the move. Putin has called on the Middle East to counter the US by rejecting the dollar in oil transactions. He specifically appealed to oil-producing nations, including BRICS members Egypt and the UAE, to consider this move. Putin stressed that if Middle Eastern oil producers abandon the US dollar, it could signal the end of the dollar's global dominance. He argued that the region has the leverage to challenge the dollar's status through its control of oil and gas resources. What's more, Saudi Arabia, a major oil producer and the leader of OPEC, joined BRICS, expanding chances of ditching the dollar for oil trade. Saudi Arabia is already testing using other currencies for oil trade. Perhaps soon Saudi Arabia might become the first country to officially declare it won't see the dollar anymore. And after this, all OPEC countries will follow suit. But as of now, despite BRICS efforts, Middle Eastern countries have not yet shifted to using local currencies for oil transactions. The US dollar remains the primary currency for oil and gas payments, with local currencies playing only a minor role in international trade. But this won't be the case for longer. Putin continues to press the Middle East to move away from the US dollar in oil trade, suggesting that this would be a fitting response to what he views as destabilizing US foreign policies. If the dollar is ditched, countries around the world no longer have to be bullied and follow whatever the US says. Their foreign policies will be independent, unlike now when countries have to first get secret approval from the United States. But is it realistic for the Middle East to abandon the US dollar for oil and gas trade? The answer seems doubtful. The US dollar is the standard currency for global trade settlements, providing a level of stability that local currencies cannot match. Transactions conducted in local currencies often result in losses due to their lack of security and reliability compared to the US dollar. The reality is that Middle Eastern nations heavily rely on the US dollar to support their economies. Many of their local currencies are pegged to the dollar, which helps to stabilize their economies. Severing ties with the US dollar could undermine their financial stability and lead to a decline in GDP. Thus, the notion of abandoning the dollar remains far-fetched for most countries in the Middle East. However, it does not mean it won't happen in the future. What's unrealistic is that it won't happen immediately. Rather, Middle Eastern countries will gradually create buffers so, even if the United States tries to sabotage their de-dollarization efforts, the impacts are not drastic on their economies. That's why we don't hear countries announcing their de-dollarization plans, but secretly, the mechanism to replace the dollar is always underway. But the final nail to the coffin will be when BRICS gives an alternative currency that is reliable like the US dollar. South Africa's BRICS ambassador, Anil Suklal, recently declared that the era of a US dollar-dominated world is coming to an end. He believes that the global economy is gradually transitioning to a de-dollarized system, reducing the US government's ability to use the dollar as a weapon in global markets. Suklal's remarks follow Russia's move to circumvent US sanctions by passing legislation that allows the use of digital financial assets for international trade. This means Russia no longer needs the US dollar for cross-border transactions. Suklal suggests that BRICS might adopt a similar strategy, potentially weakening the US dollar's influence after their next summit. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Africa's geopolitics, economy, and changing landscape. Let's continue now. And guess what? The United Arab Emirates is now advocating for BRICS countries to conduct oil trade in local currencies instead of the US dollar. The UAE aims to diversify its economic partnerships by exploring new payment methods for oil trade deals. The country is actively engaging with China, Russia, India, and Egypt, among others, to promote the use of local currencies in oil transactions, sidelining the US dollar. Reports indicate that the UAE is currently in talks with 15 countries to encourage local currency payments, signaling a potential shift in the financial strategies of BRICS nations. The UAE has already taken steps in this direction by initiating oil trade deals with India using local currencies. In a historic move, the UAE shipped over 1 million barrels of oil to India, with payments settled in Indian rupees instead of US dollars. Now wealthy individuals, particularly the ultra-rich, are becoming increasingly aware of the uncertain future of the US dollar. Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla, recently expressed his concerns about the dollar's stability, suggesting that the United States could be headed toward bankruptcy. But what if the Middle East really ditched the dollar? For that, we have to understand the dollar's dominance and the reasons behind it. In 1944, as World War II was nearing its end, Allied nations met in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, to create a new international monetary system aimed at ensuring post-war economic stability. The result was the Bretton Woods Agreement, which established the US dollar as the world's primary reserve currency. Under this system, member states pegged their currencies to the dollar, which was tied to gold at a fixed rate of $35 per ounce. This arrangement brought much-needed stability to the global economy, with the dollar serving as the anchor around which other currencies were stabilized. The choice of the dollar as the anchor currency was logical. The United States emerged from World War II with the world's strongest economy, its industrial base untouched by the war's destruction, and a substantial portion of the world's gold reserves. This economic might, coupled with the stability offered by the gold standard, made the dollar a reliable and attractive choice for countries looking to stabilize their own currencies and engage in international trade. However, the dollar's link to gold wouldn't last forever. By the late 1960s, the U.S. faced significant economic challenges, including rising inflation and a growing trade deficit. These pressures led to the Nixon administration's 1971 decision to abandon the gold standard, an event known as the Nixon shock. This move decoupled the dollar from gold, allowing it to float freely against other currencies. The sudden shift away from the gold standard created uncertainty in the global economy. Countries with significant dollar reserves, such as Saudi Arabia, were worried about the potential devaluation of their assets. For Saudi Arabia, which had priced its oil exports in dollars since a 1945 agreement guaranteeing U.S. access to Saudi oil in exchange for security guarantees, this was a pressing issue. To address the instability caused by the Nixon shock, Saudi Arabia collaborated closely with the United States to bolster demand for the dollar. The Saudi government continued to price its oil in dollars and played a crucial role in persuading other OPEC members to do the same. By tying the dollar's value to oil, a commodity vital to the global economy, rather than gold, the U.S. maintained the dollar's dominance in international markets. Since the 1970s, the US dollar, now a free-floating currency, has continued to serve as the world's primary reserve currency. Its dominance extends beyond oil to include international trade, banking, and a significant portion of global financial transactions. Despite occasional challenges, such as the global financial crisis of 2008, the dollar has remained the cornerstone of the international monetary system. Its role as the world's primary reserve currency has provided the United States with significant economic leverage and contributed to the stability of global financial markets. However, the dollar is a global currency only because Saudi Arabia and OPEC members are trading oil using the dollar. If they stopped doing so, it would be over. The dollar will be just an ordinary currency that will be only used in the United States. That's why Putin and BRICS have directly called the Middle East to ditch trading oil in dollars. Isn't it true that the only reason why the dollar is a global currency is because of its usage in the oil trade? Do you think the leaders from the Middle East will no longer side with the United States and be a part of the new world order shaped by BRICS? In the comment section right below, share your thoughts on what Russia and China should do to ensure the Middle East is on the BRICS side. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: African politics, economy, and increasing power. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.